The topic we chose for our group project is the 4 styles of decision making. The purpose is to discuss the 4 different decision making styles, their characteristics, as well as their advantages and disadvantages. So, what is decision making? According to Rise et al., decision making style is defined as the learned habitual response pattern exhibited by an individual when confronted with a decision situation. So, why is it important? According to Bavlar et al., a decision making is an important part of the process in approaching the desired result until the goal is fully achieved. Rise et al. Also said the decision style of a manager in an organization not only affects the personal life of his or her subordinates, but also affects their work related attitudes. There are 4 styles of decision making: directive, analytical, conceptual, and behavioral. Some of the characteristics of directive style of decision making include action oriented, experience driven, structured approach, and risk aversion. Directive decision makers prioritize getting things done. They often prefer to make decisions swiftly to keep projects moving forward. They also don't spend a lot of time analyzing options or gathering data. This type of decision maker also tends to rely heavily on their own expertise and previous experiences, which helps them make confident decisions without needing extensive analysts. They often trust their own gut feelings and instincts. This style often includes clear guidelines and procedures. This type of decision maker appreciates well-defined roles and responsibilities within a team. They may be more cautious when it comes to taking risk, preferring tried and true methods over untested ideas. Some of the advantages of directive decision making include speed, clarity, and control. Decisions are usually made quickly, which can be crucial in time sensitive situations. A clear directive helps teams to understand expectations and reduce ambiguity. This style also allows for strong leadership, as a decision maker often retains a high level of control over the process. Some of the disadvantages of directive style of decision making include limited input, potential for overlooked details, and team morale. So, relying mainly on their own expertise can lead to a lack of diverse perspectives, potentially missing out on innovative solutions. Also, relying too heavily on intuition can lead to errors, especially in complex situations. Quick decisions may overlook important factors or data that require more thorough consideration. When you make a decision quickly, individuals may miss some vital details or alternative options. If team members feel their input is undervalued, it can lead to dissatisfaction or disengagement. There are some situations where using a directive style of decision making can be beneficial. They include a crisis situation, a routine decision, or when there's a clear preference. So, when time is of the essence and when quick decisions are necessary, such as a crisis or an emergency, this type of decision making will be more beneficial. For a repetitive or low stakes decision, a quick and decisive approach is efficient. If there's a clear preference, so if there's a strong personal preference or a clear consensus about stakeholders, or when there's a clear direction is needed to keep a team aligned and focused.
Analytical decision making. Some tendencies that analytical decision makers have is they pay close attention to details. They typically value step-by-step approach or procedures. They want to consider all the variables that are involved in making a decision. Because analytical decision makers like to consider all the variables involved, some of the disadvantages to this is it is a slower process. They tend to overanalyze the situation, as well as oftentimes they can be domineering, where they just want to try to take control over the situation or the decision. Some advantages to this would be that they respond well to unfamiliar situations, and they're also very careful about the decisions that they do make because they want to look at it from multiple different perspectives and with all the available information. Examples of when analytical decision making is beneficial, as I mentioned on the previous slide, whenever there's a lot of information available, when maybe the possibility of the decision is highly complex, and if there's possible rules and procedures that need to be strictly followed.
Conceptual decision making has four characteristics in my opinion. First one of them being long-term focus, and it pretty much focus on the enduring success and sustainability of IBCs, which are international branch campuses. In the article I was using, it highlights how universities view IBCs as kind of like a means to have a lasting presence internationally that also generates revenue and elevate their global profile. And it just shapes decisions about how to establish IBCs and where to grow them. Second of them being abstract thinking. Decision making around IBCs, involve a lot of complex factors like regulatory environments, cultural differences, and just the educational quality in general. The article mentions institutional theory, that kind of shows how these abstract concepts guide decisions and not just wanting immediate results, but also, for results in the future and for financial integration. The third of the characteristics being innovative solutions. And when establishing IBCs, it often requires like innovative approaches because you have to address the challenges of the international education systems. So countries kind of create hubs to attract IBCs, kind of like how they do in the UAE and Singapore, and it kind of shows a creative solution to improve the national and higher education systems while accommodating global demand at the same time. The fourth characteristic being holistic view, and just in general conceptual decision making. You need to have a broader implication of what you want to do with something. And in this instance, we'll just go back to the IBCs, and we'll say like we want them to have a local impact on the economy and talent retention, and then just the development in general. So this one kind of shows how like Qatar's education city, where IBCs contribute not only just to the educational landscape, but also to like the economic diversification and workforce development. Just like the other decision making techniques, conceptual also has advantages as well. Um, One is risk management, and that helps conceptual decision making and like identify potential risk and opportunities when it's early in the process. Um, for in terms of IBCs, it could be like they have to assess different factors like regulatory changes and recruitment trends and things of that nature. So just by having a broader view of the whole situation, institutions can like kind of have a better guess, educational guess on like the challenges that they might have in the future or while they're making this decision. Two is flexibility. This approach allows decision makers to adapt to changing circumstances. And using the same example, they have to kind of look at the diverse and dynamic nature of the market and the environment they operate in. And so in the article, they were discussing how institutional distance between home and host countries can affect the success of the IBC. And so it just supports the adaptability by being able to recognize these differences and adjust strategies when they need to, just depending on the situation. The third advantage that I feel like they have is enhanced problem solving, and just because by having different perspectives and different factors, it just improves problem solving as a whole. Um, with the articles, IBCs struggle to align goals of the home institution with like the local host requirements sometimes. So the decision makers using conceptual decision making will help foster solutions that can address these uh, complex issues while also having good institutional integrity and success in the future. And we talked a little bit about the holistic approach or view in the last slide, but I feel like this is also another advantage that they have. It just kind of shows you how it can be looking at things from a larger system and just taking account into different like needs or different factors could uh that they could have for the IBCs in general. Some of them could be like financial gain, brand expansion, and just enhancing the country's education system in whole. It allows them to like put these factors all together in one and just not putting short-term factors, but it helps in the long term with sustainability and the student success. So some disadvantages for conceptual decision making, as good as it is, It's time consuming. It takes time to think about all these factors like the institutional, cultural factors, financial factors, which can slow down the decision making process. And especially with relation to IBCs, it's a complex global setting for different countries also being involved. Um, Second disadvantage is uncertain outcomes. You know, for in terms of IBC, there's limited data on it, and for financial success and long-term sustainability, so it makes it challenging to kind of predict outcomes with certainty, especially you're working in a long-term environment. You're not sure things are going to change, and you just kind of have to adapt to that. So, being uncertainty is just a big part of it in general. Resistance to change is another disadvantage. Putting something like IBC in the host country, it may face resistance because they're not, new to it, and it can also change like the traditional education system or policy that they have over in that country. So they might not be fond of it at first, but that's just going to come with using conceptual decision making. It's going to be new things that people haven't thought of before. So it'll be facing pushback initially. The fourth disadvantage is overcomplication. Um, like multiple motivations and diverse forms of IBCs can lead to a situation where like decision makers are focusing on too many different variables, where they're then having trouble trying to prioritize the key factors that they need to be focusing on. So just the overwhelming amount of different variables that come with conceptual decision making in general. But yeah.
So, what is behavioral decision making? The University of Arizona defines behavioral decision making as the study of effective cognitive and social processes which humans employ to identify and choose alternatives. These processes are guided by the values, beliefs, and preferences of the decision maker to produce a final choice and sway behavior. This behavioral style is the most oriented towards people among the four. Individuals with this style excel in collaborative settings and enjoy engaging in social interactions that promote open dialogue. They are supportive, open to ideas, warm-hearted, and prefer verbal communication over written form. While they like to conduct meetings, they often avoid conflict and may be overly concerned about the feelings of others. Here are some pros for behavioral decision making. Strong interpersonal relationships. Behavioral decision makers prioritize building and maintaining strong relationships among team members. This promotes trust and open communication, which can enhance teamwork and collaboration. Positive work environment. Managers who employ this decision style are focused on creating a positive and supportive work environment. This can improve morale, job satisfaction, and overall well-being among employees. Reduce conflict. By involving team members in the decision-making process and considering their feelings and opinions, behavior decision-making can help prevent and resolve conflicts. Behavioral decision-making can be highly effective in certain situations, such as group collaborations. Behavioral decision-making thrives when teams work together to solve complex problems or make collective choices. In conflict resolution, it's effective in resolving workplace conflicts by promoting open dialogue and finding common ground. Employee engagement. Seeking employee input on policies or improvements boosts engagement and morale. Behavioral decision making does come with its cons. One of the most notable downsides of behavioral decision making is that it can be time consuming. Seeking input and building consensus among team members may slow down the decision making process. Behavioral decision making can sometimes blur the line of decision ownership. With many people involved in this process, it may be unclear who is ultimately responsible for the decision's outcomes.